My biggest tip for running Drakkenheim is let your players take the reins. The book presents a toolbox for you to use as a dungeon master to be prepared to improvise. And I like to remind DMs that are running the adventure is that the book is an order of magnitude more than I had when I ran the original campaign. And so it represents things that you can use, that you can bring into play to help you improvise the interaction that your players are going to bring to the table. One of the most magical parts for me in running Drakkenheim was those moments where I could present a scenario to the players and sit back and let them discuss it. And so oftentimes you have to do far less than you think you do as a DM because the choices and the discussions are immediately, you're going to see what the consequences are. And so I think that ultimately, let your players take the reins and then respond to them by really showing them how their actions and their choices had an impact. Players should walk away from a Drakkenheim campaign being confident in the choices that they made, but understanding that it could have been very different had they made different choices. And talking with other dungeon masters who have run the campaign and hearing all the different ways that it went, there's no right or wrong outcome. It's all about what the players get to discover. So trust the players, let them take the reins, and enjoy the ride of finding out what happens, because it will. For me, the most rewarding part of it is getting to be surprised by the choices the players make.
I think that my biggest tip for a dungeon master, I think the most important thing if you're running a Drakkenheim campaign, I have my favorite factions, Monty has his favorite factions, but the factions are so important to be, at the outset of the campaign, neutral. And maybe not so much neutral, but equally good and equally evil. And so they do
good and bad.
They have good and bad. Each faction represents something that you can listen to what they say and go, they have a point, but are they right? And every DM should set aside their favoritism. Maybe a DM out there is like, I love the Amethyst Academy, but there is a chance that you might present the Amethyst Academy as the automatic good guys because they're your favorites. But I think it's more important that the players get to make that choice. So my general rule of thumb is, if my players are starting to ally with a faction, I throw in a little bit of what makes them corrupt. And just to remind the players, hey, remember that there's some evil stuff here. And if the players are making an enemy of a faction, I have the leader or lieutenant of that faction explain to them a very good point on why what they're doing could be beneficial. And that way you're always kind of riding the line of whether each of the factions is good or evil, and it really, really comes up to the player to decide what they think is right. And that's what's going to drive the story. So put your favoritism aside on the factions and really try to deliver an honest take on why each of the factions could be good or could be evil, and that way the players will drive the narrative forward.